All right, we are going to be taking another look at some function things here. So I want you to think of a function as some sort of a machine. When you put something into it, you get something out of it. Sometimes functions work where you put something in, like some bread, and you take something out and you get bread back out again. Some sort of, it might be altered, it's toast now or whatever. And then there's machines that just don't even make sense, or functions that don't make sense. And that would be something like where you put bread in and you get an egg out. Makes absolutely no sense. So sometimes things are functions and sometimes things aren't. However, I want you to think of them as sort of machines, okay? So a function is a machine that assigns one output to every input. The output is considered your y value, or you might think of it as your f of x value. And the input, of course, would be your x values. So if you look at what a function tells you, this tells you what you're inputting. You're going to take that and you're going to plug it in for the x value. Your result that you get, or your answer, will be your f of x or your y part of it, okay? So here we've got some different functions. We have f of x, which you can see as x cubed minus 3, and we have g of x, which you can see as 3x squared minus 3x minus 2. What it's wanting me to do in this particular problem here is to find f of negative 2. You need to pay really close attention to this letter that's out in front. In this case, it's f. All that tells you is which function to use. This function here is labeled with the letter f. This one is labeled with the letter G. So you are going to use the function in this case that starts with the letter F. All it wants you to do is to take that negative 2 that it gave you, and that's your input. And I'm going to do this up here because I don't have to scroll my screen then. So F of negative 2, basically that means wherever I see an X, I'm going to replace it with negative 2 on both the left side and the right side. So I will do negative 2 cubed and then minus 3. I want you to be cautious of negatives. If you're using your calculator to do them, please make sure that you put them in parentheses, or sometimes the negatives will be not correct depending on the sign. And then the other thing I want you to make sure you know of is when you cube something, it doesn't mean to multiply it by 3. It means to multiply it by itself 3 times. So negative 2 cubed would be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which we know is negative 8 minus 3, and then I get negative 11 for my answer. So f of negative 2 becomes negative 11. I want you to just kind of recall that that answer could be, if you wanted to, recorded in a table like this, and my input was negative 2, my output was negative 11. It could be recorded as a coordinate, negative 2, negative 11. Or instead of this y being called y, the y could be called f of x if you wanted it to. All kinds of different ways to record what you just figured out. All right, next, I want you to find g of 6. So again, this says g right here, so I'm going to make sure that I use function g, which I actually don't even have up on this screen, so I will rewrite this for us. Let's try this. G of x, I'm just going to rewrite this down here. G of x is 3x squared minus 3x minus 2. So if I want to find g of 6, I'm going to take my x and I'm going to replace it with a 6. I did that on the left side of the equal sign, so I need to do that on the right also. Wherever I see an x, I will replace it with a 6. Here you need to make sure that you're just using the correct order of operations. So I need to square something before I multiply it by the 3. So I will do 3 times 6 squared, which is 36. And then negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. And subtract 2. And then 3 times 36 is 108. Minus 18 minus 2 gives me 88 as an answer. So again, you could record this as a coordinate if you wanted to. When my input was 6, my output was 88. Or you could record it in a table or whatever. Okay, another one, f of 2b. This time I have variables in my input. and numbers also, but I also have some variables. Same process. F of 2b, and again, this is letter F, so I'm making sure that I use function F. Wherever I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 2b. So instead of x cubed, I'm going to go 2b cubed. When you cube this 2b, you need to make sure that you not only cube the b, but you cube the 2. So 2 cubed is 8, and b cubed is b cubed, so this becomes 8b cubed minus 3. And that's all that I can do. I can't simplify that anymore, so I get 8b cubed minus 3. And if you want to record this as a coordinate, your input would be 2b, your output would be 8b cubed minus 3. Okay? But this would be your answer. Okay? Next, g of negative 3a. So again, this is letter G. I'm going to make sure that I use function g. And g of negative 3a will be 3 times negative 3a squared minus 3 times negative 3a minus 2. Again, please be sure that you're using parentheses when you're squaring negatives or cubing negatives or taking any negatives to a power. Put them in parentheses and follow the right order of operations. So here I need to take care of the squared part first. So negative 3a squared, negative 3 squared is 9, and a squared is a squared, so that becomes 9a squared. Here, negative 3 times negative 3a is positive 9a, and then minus 2. And then I'll multiply the 3 times my 9a squared to get 27a squared plus 9a minus 2. So here's your answer. Okay, again, if you wanted to write this as a coordinate, I would have my input of negative 3a and my output of 27a squared plus 9a minus 2. All right, then we're going to do a couple where we've got some fractions. Here we want to find g of y over 4. So I'm going to make sure that I use function g, and I will plug in y over 4. When I do that, I will have 3 times y over 4 squared minus 3 times y over 4 minus 2. So I know people sometimes freak out about fractions, but I don't want you to do that, okay? Fractions are our friends. So I am going to square y over 4. When you square a fraction, you just square the top and you square the bottom. So y squared is y squared. 4 squared is 16, okay? Remember that this is 3 over 1 right here, so I'm going to multiply across the top, and I have negative 3y, and across the bottom, 1 times 4 is 4, okay? And then again, this is 3 over 1 right here, so across the top, I would have 3y squared. Across the bottom, I have 16, and then I have negative 3y over 4, and then minus 2. So here's what I want you to know. It may leave it like this in accelerated math if you're doing your homework. It might leave it like this. For me, this will be fine. Accelerated math may make you have common denominators. So it would want this one to be 16, and so then you'd have to multiply this by 4 over 4, so that it would become negative 12y over 16. And then it would want this denominator, which is 1 right now, to be 16. So you'd multiply top and bottom by 16, and you'd get negative 32 over 16. And then it might have it written like that, or it might have it written like this, all over 16, like that. Or it might have it written like this, with the 1/16 in front, and then 3y squared minus 12y minus 32. It is all the same thing. Okay, and we have one last problem, h of 1/2. So we're going to take function h right here. We're going to stick it into this problem. So h of 1/2 will be 3 times 1/2 squared plus 5 divided by 1/2. Again, I know you're dealing with fractions, but don't freak out, okay? you're going to square 1/2. When you square 1/2, you square the top and you square the bottom. So 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared is 4. So this really becomes 3 times 1/4 plus 5. Now, instead of dividing by a fraction, you can multiply it by its reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 1/2, I'm going to multiply by 2/1. And then I think you can see that this becomes 3/4 plus 5 times 2, which is 10. And 3/4 plus 10 is 10 3/4. And if you get common denominators, the 10 can become 40/4. So this whole thing turns into 43/4. When you add the 3/4 plus the 44, you get 43/4. Okay? And that should do it for this lesson.